Welcome to memoQ Talks, where we talk to industry leaders about their experiences, lessons learned, and what works best across all areas of localization. Now here's your host.
Hey Nara, how are you?
Hi Mark, nice to meet you again.
Likewise. So is it the Chuseok holiday now in Korea?
Yes, it is actually. It is the very Chuseok day.
Wow, I feel honored that you seriously would take time out on Chuseok Day to talk with me. That's awesome.
Of course, I'd rather be speaking with you than be stuck in the traffic. The traffic is crazy.
Yeah, but that's one part of Chuseok, and it's a big part of it. But another part of it is to go spend time with your family, right? And for people who don't know, can you maybe spend a couple minutes to explain what is the Chuseok holiday?
Oh yeah, it's like one of the two biggest national holidays here in Korea. The other being the Lunar New Year. So it's mostly like family and food type of, sort of like Thanksgiving kind of holiday. But then my parents are more like, we're finally going to spend some time alone. Our kids are all grown up and they're no longer cute type of parents. And we can meet up anytime. Doesn't necessarily have to be Chuseok. I told you traffic is crazy. So yeah, I'm chilling and just speaking to Yes.
Where do your parents live?
Like 2 hours driving from here on normal days and 5 hours driving on Chuseok. So,
yeah,
no,
that's
I'm not
fun.
doing that.
No. Well, hey, then you can talk to me. Great. Boy, happy Chuseok. And, I got to say also congratulations to you because I noticed that recently you've won several awards, and I want to talk to you about some of those. And then what I really want to talk to you about is what it's like to work in the language industry in Korea, as a freelancer, as somebody who works for an LSP, but then also setting up your own business, which you've done and you've become quite successful. But before we talk about the awards and the Korean language industry, could you maybe just take a couple minutes and explain a little bit about your business, JOEL Localization?
Okay. By a little bit, how little do you mean? Is it something like an elevator pitch?
Like an elevator pitch, but we can go up to like the 20th floor. So we got like a minute or two. Go ahead. Yeah.
Elevators are super fast these days. Okay.
Well, let's do one of my generation elevators. Okay.
That works. Okay.
Okay.
So I run JOEL Localization, which is a localization service provider, obviously. And if you're listening to this, you must be familiar with the concept. But just in case you're not, it is translation plus interpretation plus all such efforts to basically find the optimal market fit for each market a global brand tries to enter. So what my team does is we provide localization consultation as well as translation and interpretation. And interpretation for on-site also includes the sound system and equipment for simultaneous interpretation, the receivers and everything. So it's basically end to end, depending on what modules of service you want to pick and combine, because we have everything. I think we're on the 20th floor.
That's awesome. Perfect timing. Let me ask you, when you talk about helping brands kind of localize, globalize, are you working primarily with companies who are coming into Korea or with Korean companies who are going international or global?
I think with both, it's like 50-50. We work with a lot of companies whose source language is English and want to have them into different languages, like also Korean companies as well. But with Korean companies, I think we do more of conference support. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I want to come back to some of the unique characteristics of both doing business in Korea, but also localizing into the Korean language, because for every language, it's a lot of times it's not just a simple, straightforward translation. There are a lot of different cultural nuances and things like that. And I want to come back to that in a second. But first off, okay, so you're running a business, and also you've been receiving a lot of recognition for the work that you've been doing. I think you were CEO of the Year for APAC Insider.
Yes,
Innovation and Excellence Award for Corporate Livewire. you're also the Korean chapter head for the Asia Africa Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And I think you were also on the cover of a magazine.
Oh, you remember everything better than I do. Did you like LinkedIn stalk me?
Pretty much. That's what I do. Right.
That's actually a valuable skill these days.
Yes. I have an AI assistant that helps me stalk everybody. But let me ask you. I mean, you're quite busy running the business. You're receiving that recognition. How does it feel to get that kind of level of recognition?
How does it feel? I feel honored, of course, and also like at first they just reached out to me out of nowhere. The first award I got was by APAC Insider, and I like it because like it focuses on the APAC market, and we work with many companies who start in APAC and want to go global, and other global companies want to come into the APAC. This is a very vibrant market. And then the other ones follow, like the Innovation and Excellence Award. That one was pretty cool because they invited me all the way to Dubai. And
wow.
I had a video interview with me. It must be somewhere on my LinkedIn feed, I think. So yeah,
I saw it when I was stalking you.
Again, very valuable skills these days.
Yeah. But you also took on the role of chapter head for the Asia African Chamber of Commerce. And that's an extra layer or level of responsibility. How do you juggle all of those responsibilities?
So they're newly launching the South Korea chapter. And as you said, at first I was like, well, I'm not sure if I can juggle all that while doing my business, But then like I thought about it. And like making connections and facilitating communication, like to help businesses reach out to a broader audience. That's basically like our mission, if you think about it, as a localization company. So like once I realized that, then it was easy. I accepted the position, and I am attending the Asian African Economic Forum this year as well in October. So it's just a few weeks after this. And I'll be giving a speech too.
Wow. And where's that going to be?
In Bangkok.
Nice. Wow.
Nice. Yes. Actually, it's my first time there.
It's a lot of great food there. Amazing place. So let's go back to the beginning. I think you studied languages, and it's most people who go into language services, if they want to work as a translator or project manager, they don't necessarily want to start up their own business. So maybe we can go back to, back to the beginning, and like, what was your inspiration to study languages? And, and how did you make that transition from student to freelancer working for LSPs? Just talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so I went to a grad school of interpretation and translation, and then worked as a conference interpreter, translator, editor, and even project manager. So I shifted towards the manager position around the time of the first COVID outbreak, because the freelance market was really going down at the time, and there was not many conferences were being canceled. So there weren't many work left for freelance interpreters. So I switched to the manager position. I thought that would be a more sustainable way to stay in the industry. And after gaining experience in almost all possible positions in the industry, then I felt like I was ready to lead my own team. And on top of that, like, I know the most talented people, right? I have the people from my grad school, so it's a huge talent pool, which is a great plus if you're an LSP.
No, it's so true. It's like, because it's a service industry, getting the right people in the right seats, whether it's project management, whether it's linguists, it's such a critical part of the business, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's always about people and tax, but people.
Yeah. You had a chance to work both as a translator and interpreter. Yes. What are the skills needed for each or both?
For both, basically language skills, but there are like so many differences. I think the biggest difference is that, like, for translation, you can go back and fix it. You can improve it, like, as long as you do it by the deadline, right? For interpretation, it's more like once it's out of your mouth, it's just set like that, especially if you're doing simultaneous interpretation. So, like, as the speaker starts, you start your sentence too, but you do not know how it will end. And if you don't like how it came out, you just don't have time to go back and fix it. So it's more like making a split-second decision, but every 2 seconds.
And do you have to, like, when you recognize that, oh, I probably could have done that better, but it's too late now, do you have to just be able to just let it go, or does it eat on you a little bit? Does it just still bother you?
It is on me little by little and completely eat me up when the conference is over. But sometimes I try to make the remedy in my next sentence, like in a few following sentences. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just
when you're in that mode, does time go fast or does it slow down?
Most speakers do not speak that slowly because they are talking about the topic that they're interested in, that they have expertise in, and they are excited, and sometimes because they are nervous, and sometimes because they memorized things. So feels like, I don't know. So like there's the research that says there's like certain number of words a person can use in a day. And it says on average it's like 10,000 for men and 25,000 for women.
What? What's that?
I don't know the exact details, but if I remember it correctly, there was that difference. It's more than double. So like by the end of the conference, I feel like I used up all my 25,000. And when I'm out of the booth, I start making, like, my brain stops making proper sentences. It's just like, okay, I'm done with today's work. It is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it must be a big help for you, having worked in those different roles. Now you understand what's needed, but you can also coach. You can, you can identify good talent, but you can also coach people as well.
Yeah, I think like people who graduated from my grad school are already well coached and trained at school. They don't really need my coaching, but what I do is I can like walk the conference holder through what needs to be prepared. If they've been doing it for many, many times, they already know the drills. But sometimes if it's their first conference that they're holding and we are providing the booth and there are certain things that need to be set up before that, like the stage equipment has to go in first and then the sound system, and then we do the booth and we can do the sound testing. And if you're doing the live streaming, there's additional work to do, like all the order and stuff and things that need to be prepared and things that they need to check. Like basically they need to check with the conference room first if they can use the booth there, right? So like it's more of a coaching for the customers rather than the interpreters. So I've put it all together in a guide, and I share it with the customers who are holding conferences with me.
So get the customers ready.
Yeah, that's actually the bigger part. Yes.
Yeah. You know, I hear a lot about, AI and NLP, mostly in the context of translation. What technology are you seeing that is going to change the way interpretation is delivered?
Well, I think like we cannot really, whatever career you're in, we cannot speak of a future of any career without talking about AI. And I think like for translation, we have seen more progress than interpretation, but I think it will go similarly. So like, for example, for translation, we had machine translation already before people started calling it AI translation after ChatGPT. Well, the quality has improved a lot, but the point is it has already been in there for many years, right?
Right.
And yet we still use human translators and editors. And of course, it is in part because of quality assurance. But I think another main factor is like to have someone sign off the final product, which means there's a person that can be held accountable when there's an issue. And that is also a very important thing in business. So like, I think it will go similarly with AI for interpretation as well. Like machine translation is now being widely used. Interpretation will certainly seek help for, get help with technology for rather casual business meetups or internal workshops and stuff. It's basically like what machine translation is already doing, but you add like voice recognition system and then text to speech layer to that. So it's more complicated, but it's not like you need some new original technology, even though it can be many more years before it can be as good as simultaneous interpreters for formal global conferences. So the thing is, there's still demand, but I think it will be more and more difficult for like newcomers to enter the market because what used to be done by like entry level people, if you will, it can now be done by AI, and businesses do not need that big of a team compared to like in the past. And if they're keeping it lean, it's natural that they want to have people with more experience. So I think that's what's happening widely in translation. And I think the interpretation, if rather slowly, will go in that direction too.
What are you seeing in Korea in terms of, remote interpretation platforms, both for like booking services, but also for delivering them through iPads or other devices? Is that something that's becoming increasingly common in Korea?
It was a big thing during the COVID time because companies were doing meetings and seminars and everything on Zoom. Is it okay to mention the product name?
Sure.
Okay. Zoom or any other like basically online platform, conferencing platform. But I think a lot of them are coming back to offline venues to actually meet up. And I've seen the trend in the conferences that we are providing support for as well. So during the COVID, they did mostly online. And after COVID, for a couple of years, they did streaming so that they can have like speakers connecting through Zoom and people on the floor. So as a hybrid event. And these days I am like seeing less streaming and more inviting of the speakers. So I think people are kind of going back to the offline events more and more.
Okay. In the US or North America, a huge consumer of remote interpretation services and some on site, quite a bit, is the healthcare industry, because we have people from all over the world and they need to go in and they need it. It definitely affects their outcomes, their health outcomes, positively if they can receive advice in their native language, right? So, but it's not always practical to have somebody show up on site. Okay, so the way to do that is using remote. Now, I know in Korea, for example, you do have a lot of immigrants these days. You have a lot of immigrants from China, from Vietnam. I'm thinking probably from some other Southeast Asian countries, and maybe some other countries that because it's been a few years since I've been there. Is there a movement towards providing interpretation services in the context of providing either healthcare or other social services in Korea?
Well, that's a totally different line of work. We usually call that community interpretation, like that medical thing, or interpretation for immigrants and stuff like that. So that's that community interpretation. There are people who do that, who specialize in like legal disputes or like for courtroom discussions. And as you said, it is more common to use remote interpretation for those urgent kind of medical situations. And we are not exactly, we do more conferences than like community interpretation. So I'm not an expert in that part, but I do think there should be more and more need in that part as well.
Yeah, and again, my original question was related to the technology, because the only way that we can actually scale those services in America is through leveraging those platforms. And I was just wondering if any of them were becoming more or less popular there.
Okay. So my response was more focused on the conference side of things, but yeah, for those like medical situation and that kind of thing, as you said, it's really inefficient to wait for someone to show up. So
yeah,
a lot of remotes in that field.
So are there any like key localization industry events in Korea every year?
Not that many. But there's memoQ events. We do have to talk about that.
Oh, there's memoQ. I've heard of them.
There is. Yeah, you ever heard of them? That's kind of a big thing here. So I attended last year and I liked it. Well, it was well structured, but like most of all, I like that it took place in Korea because a lot of localization themed events still take place in the States or other European countries, like the Lock World, for example. So I like that they provided a venue for industry insiders to gather and chat. So I think that happens like still more often out of Korea. And like, I feel like memoQ Day is kind of starting it, kicking things off. And speaking of memoQ Day, we do have to mention this. This year, we are sponsoring memoQ Day Seoul.
Nice. And when is that?
Yes. So we are providing the booth and receivers and 2 simultaneous interpreters.
That is awesome. That is so nice of you. And remind me the dates of that.
November 11th, I think.
And
November
in
11th.
Seoul, right?
In Seoul, yes, in Seoul.
Yes, we'll put a link in the show notes. So if anybody wants to go, I'm still trying to negotiate. I haven't been to Korea for a couple of years. I think I need to go. So
You should.
let me ask you.
They had coffee and snack last year.
Okay, I'll fly all the way there. Okay. I know that you have a pet turtle.
Oh yeah, I do.
Does he ever come out in public? Or she?
No, I saw some nice turtles do that. Mine has a strong personal boundary and can be aggressive. So like
an aggressive turtle.
Yeah, I know.
What does an aggressive turtle do?
Like, they scratch and bite. It bit my finger it was just a few days ago. I was gonna make this whole thing about like how to make a turtle happy, and then it bit my finger just a few days ago, and I was just cleaning its tank. So it kind of hit me that, oh, this must be like how it feels like if you have a kid. Like, no matter how hard you try, they will hate you if they hate you.
Sometimes they'll bite you.
Yeah, they will bite you. So all you can do is like give them healthy food, vitamin, calcium for healthy shells. I mean, if your kids have shells, clean water, and admit that they have
some great advice, whether you're raising a turtle or kids. It works either way, right?
Yeah, they have their own agendas in their lives, and all you can do is like provide food and water and stay out of their ways unless you want to get bitten, right?
I think that's some amazing advice. I think you should write a book. Let me ask you, if somebody they're in university and they're like, I want to go into the localization industry, what advice or what questions would you ask them, and then what advice would you give them?
First of all, I would ask why they want to go into the localization industry, because it's a very wide industry and there are many subsectors in it. Like if you want to really make money out of it, or if you want to like translate a book that you like, those are two very different things. So I think I will first ask what you want to do in the industry. And then like I would say, like we already talked about AI a bit earlier, and I would say there's definitely something that they should keep in mind. And as I said, I believe it will be more and more difficult for like entry-level people to enter the market. But if you do want to enter the market, I think what you can do is expand your skill sets, because being proficient in more than one language is a very strong tool, but it creates a even stronger synergy effect when it's combined with like neighboring skills, let's say. So I would say like, keep an open mind. It's good to have specialties, but like also try out other fields. And like, don't limit yourself to just interpretation or just translation, because that is like, how should I put it? It's like putting all your talent eggs in one basket, and it is riskier than ever in this era of AI.
Okay, that's some great advice. What's in the future for you? Obviously, you're very busy. You're going to be taking on the new role as running the chapter for the Asian. What is it? Asia Chamber of Commerce. Chamber. Yes, you've got that. Are there any localization related organizations in Korea? Like, for example, like Localunch. We have Localunch chapters all around the world. Do you have anything like that in Seoul?
Not that I know of. If there's one, I've never been invited.
So I have an idea for you. So in Seattle, Rick Antezana and I, we lead something called the Seattle Localization User Group. And if you think about it, SLUG, slug, which is not a pleasant image, but it's a cute little logo. We have events every quarter. In fact, one of the reasons I'm up here in Vancouver in this hotel room with my beautiful green curtain here is that it's Tech Week here, but there's also the Vancouver Localization User Group that is set up by Pascal Tremblay and Paula Hunter and Eduardo Malajes. Now I got his last name wrong. He's gonna shoot me, but that's okay. But Eduardo, so they've set up the Vancouver Localization User Group, and you might think about something like that in Korea, because what's really cool is that we get together quarterly and bring in some guest speakers. Sometimes people travel from out of town and they'll come and do a presentation, and it's all not for profit. It's just, self-sustaining, not really promotional, just more educational. We typically get 30, 40, 50 people out for each event.
That's cool. And like you said, user groups. So like, what do they exactly do in the user group? Like because like when you say localization user, it can be pretty much anyone. It doesn't have to be like localization worker. You said user.
What we try to do is change the themes. So like we will do a panel discussion on AI and localization. Then we'll have a session on game localization, which is also quite big in Korea, right?
It is. I also work with a game maker anyways.
There you go. So, and then just basically we do one session every 3 months, and we just change the focus. So sometimes it could be on career advancement. Sometimes it could be on, educational opportunities, things like that. And that brings up another question. What are the biggest sectors for localization in Korea when it comes to translation? What are the biggest industries?
There are plenty. I couldn't say I know the scale of all of them, but I myself, when I was a freelancer, started in the tech industry. So we still work with a lot of tech companies, software, and gaming is not exactly tech, but anyway. Yeah, I started in the tech industry, and it's also a big sector. There's also finance. And I don't know the exact scale of each industry, but I think tech and finance must be one of the biggest two pillars.
Yeah, and then like if I think about like the manufacturers, the Samsung, Hyundai's, do they manage their localization? Because they're producing cars and all kinds of industrial equipment. Are their localization projects managed in Korea, or do they have regional hubs like somebody in Europe will handle for all the different European languages, and then they have North America for English? How does that work?
They have their in-house team. I know for sure that they have their in-house team in Korea. I don't know how they collaborate with other teams in global offices, but they do have their in-house teams. But like sometimes when they're doing certain projects, the amount of content to localize is just too much for their own team to complete within the deadline. So they outsource a big part of that too. So we do work with a lot with companies who already have their own localization team, but also need outside partners to cover everything.
And when I was in Korea, working with Korean governmental associations was quite important. The organizations like Kita Kotra, the different Chamber of Commerces. Is it still important?
It depends. Important. Of course, it is important to have customers if you can. Government customers, they're good too. We did some events with Kotra and Kita, a little bit of translation. I think that they're like two different lines of business, working with the public sector and with the private sector. Like, and especially for the interpreters, the difference kind of more clear. The kind of style that they prefer in public government agencies and businesses differ a lot. But yeah, important. Important is a like very broad statement. It's good to have such clients, but like if you're focused more on other part of businesses, it's not like necessary to have in your client profile, I would say.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Well, hey, what are you going to be doing at memoQ Day Seoul? You're sponsoring, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm sponsoring, so I'm sending the interpreters, and I'm going to be having coffee instead.
And cool. And so somebody wants to come by and say hello?
Yeah, I think I'll be given a chance to like introduce our company very briefly at the opening. And they are also like playing a promotional video of our team in favor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So the video.
Can I ask, how do you judge the size of your company? I mean, what's the metric that you look at? Is it the size of your team? What do you?
Well, we're a small team in terms of regular project managers, but given the nature of the industry, most interpreters and translators are freelancers. So in that sense, we have a very wide pool of talents speaking different languages. Like even from my grad school alone, we have like 8-9 language majors altogether.
Wow. Do you have any plans for overseas offices?
Probably in the future, yes, I do.
If you could pick one country that would be your definite, that's the country that you want to open an office in, which country would it be?
That's a very difficult question. Do you have any recommendation?
Oh, well, like you said, it's a difficult question. I actually really enjoyed living in Korea. I enjoyed Japan. Japan and Korea have a very interesting relationship, but because of the cross-border trade there's a lot of opportunities. Obviously, you probably do there's a lot of regional work with China. I think it'd be great if you had an office in the U.S., but hey, that's just me, you know. West Coast of the U.S., there's a lot of stuff going on between Korea and the West Coast. Oh
yeah, right. US is cool too, or it could be one of the APAC countries as well, because like a lot of things are happening there. And that's what like the AACCI is focusing on as well. It's like really vibrant markets. So it could be another country in Asia, or it could be like in one of those English speaking countries too. Haven't really thought of the exact location yet, but yes, I do hope to be able to expand. So yeah, stay tuned. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, hey, you've done amazingly well, and congratulations again on all the awards and the additional responsibility. Thank you for sponsoring memoQ Day Seoul and participating and lending your support. We really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you either here or there, hopefully sometime near in the future.
Yeah. Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah.
Did I do okay? It was my first podcast.
This is your first podcast. You did awesome. You did awesome. And
podcast, and I spoke about how it must feel if I had a kid. So I'm not sure if I did.
Let it all out there. Someday you'll have to show this to your children when you have children, if you have children. how you compared them to raising a turtle. But anyway, hey, it was great talking with you, and I hope to cross paths with you one day soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mark. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining memoQ Talks, where we talked with industry leaders about their experiences and lessons learned to gain new insights about what works best across all areas of localization. Join us next time on memoQ Talks.